Recognize. Yep. Oh, you got that? Okay. You can just go outside and that makes sense. That thing is awesome. We went to the cocktail, like, it's changed so much. So I mean, gosh, we have so many worship him. Love you. The thing is with him is oh, thanks. Yeah, we're live. And just to be clear, it's the one facing this way. I'm using the other one as sort of like an easel.
Well, that's weird, because I could stand in the back of the room, talk to the camera, and be behind everybody. I'll switch to that one.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Flattering my friend.
one minute.
Are you going to address these violence? Oh, there you go. This is a little bit too tall, but, are you gonna be dressing around this room?
One can only hope.
We started one.
You know what?
And you're actually on, 10 people are watching you live.
No, it's okay. Maybe it'll keep, maybe it'll keep it, so
Okay.
I think the other way around, but, all right.
Here's a 16 to 30 seconds.
What is it, 30 seconds away?
16 to 30 seconds, depends on how. And 16 to 30.
Oh, okay.
Yes, as measured.
Hello,
Sometimes
everybody. Welcome to the December meeting of the Delaware Valley Amateur Congress. I do join this online. We have a full agenda, including Sheriff Carlos showing us what he wore for Halloween, which I'm really excited about. And we have a presentation by our astrophotographer, who we're attempting to parallax the moon and Mars on Wednesday night, and with one of them in Greece and one here, and what they got was spectacular images of clouds in both locations. So they parallaxed the clouds. We knew you could do that. We will start, as we always do, with our reports. And Brian, our membership chair, will go first. And you like.
We have, I thought we had 16 members, and we have 18 members. Barbara Frank, Woody Wooler, Aaron Berger, Kenneth Copeland, Jeffrey Chapman, I believe was the gentleman here tonight. Actually, Melissa Berger is also here tonight, and Jack Hope.
Great, thank you. Welcome, glad to see you here. Next comes our treasurer's report.
Hi there, I'm Louis Furman.
Happy to talk like this. You know, I'm one of those people who a microphone only makes worse. But any case, I'm your outgoing treasurer. Thank you very much. And let me do my last duty. Please, 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 please renew. Go to the website, see your name, log in. It says if you renew, it really helps us out with our mission, which we really appreciate for you. If you don't remember your password, there is a support button up top. You get to reach a real live human who can help you do the thing. And it's been my pleasure helping you out. I'm term limited, so they're going to kick me in my ass, and I'm going to disappear, end of this month. And you're going to talk about how we're going to help that happen on Sunday, right?
Yes, after we get all our reports. Let's see, Janet, anything for outreach?
I don't have outreach, but I want to have an announcement about some clinics.
You're right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jan Rush. I'm Vice President. And I want to do, where do I advance this?
You want to share the slides? Let me do that.
Oh, it's up there. Sorry.
Wow.
You want this? Would you want this help? Oh, you didn't want.
So I just wanted to make a plug for the winter clinics that we're going to be having. We have 4 clinics scheduled so far. They'll take place in this nice warm room, but they're going to be hands-on workshops with lots of good teaching from folks in the club who have a lot of experience. So the first one on January 7th is for kids and teens. We have actually quite a number of junior members and also children and grandchildren of members. So if any of you have anyone in your family who is interested in doing this, we'll have telescopes set up for them to practice on. They'll get to see what different kinds of telescopes can accomplish. And if you have a telescope that they can bring, we'll give them practice operating it and help them out with any problems they might be having. And then on that same day, we'll have a lecture from Al Lamperti on what you can see with a small and medium telescope. So what the different kinds of objects are. And that's for adults, although children can, anyone who's at the first workshop who wants to stay can stay for that. And then on February 25th, we have 2 workshops scheduled. One is to teach you about Sky Safari, how to use that program in your observing. And Gary Trapezano is going to lead that one. And then we have one on collimating your telescope. Many of you have actually asked about this. And we're going to have hands-on help, have displays, and we'll help you out with that. So be sure to register for these ahead of time because we need a minimum of 5 people for the kids' teens workshop. And we need a minimum of 8 people to register for the others in order to have it, to make it worthwhile and fun. So take a look. They're all posted on the website, and you'll be able to tell from that whether it's something you'll be interested in. And since I have the floor, whoops, wrong way, I'd like to thank Harold for 3 years as our president.
Keep going.
And what did he do during those 3 years? Well, I have a few things down here to remind us. There's a lot of presidential stuff associated with deciding what to do relative to a pandemic. I mean, it was a lot of tough stuff, decision making, and I think we came out pretty well. We maintained our membership, we kept people active and interested, and it worked out pretty well.
If I can make a thing, our membership has grown to unprecedented levels under our tutelage by 34 people.
I don't think it's that.
Yeah.
That's COVID-19.
I'm just saying, you're the man, you get the credit, you get the derision.
You had to run interference a few times for little controversies, not big ones, just little ones. Had a lot of equipment donations, and everything that is no one else's job is the president's job, right? So he was continually triaging stuff, figuring out what to do. And then it was nice to have someone we knew could sort out the legal stuff to make sure we were on track with the nonprofit status and equipment ownership stuff and all that good stuff. And then, whoops, wrong way again. I want to thank you for your wonderful columns in the newsletter. And if any of you have failed to see these, they're still up there on the website. These wonderful columns were the randomness of it all, not a viewing report, getting in our own way. We are all Giordano Bruno, alone again naturally. That's why they call it terminal velocity, social distancing, and wither locust stop, yeah, which is everybody's favorite. And there are many more too, but thank you very much for all your hard work in the past 3 years. Oh my goodness, we have to hit the lights for this. This is Harold's wonderful photo of New Wise in Cherry Springs. Yeah. So thank you. Because you'll have so much time in your hands now that you're not president anymore, we have a gift for you. You might want to show. Could you bring the lights up, please? Sorry. That would let people know what that is.
Only 12,000. Did that say 12,000?
All the 5 of them are blue.
That does say 12,000.
The numbers that large to be written scientifically.
Well, it's just binary.
You might want to
Oh, wait, there's.
Oh, only one piece. Oh, thank you. That's very nice. Right.
And what is very nice?
Gift card to Rod. Thank you very much.
And I'm looking at Frank.
I love the
Yeah, I still feel
Look
like
at it.
you've been chipped out of your 12,000 pieces.
Show it to the camera.
Show it to the camera.
Oh, yeah. Oh, which they're still showing the slides.
Yeah,
Oh, there it is. There we go.
yeah.
There it is.
And by the way, there are 13 people watching online, so even more people.
That's great. Well, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun. This organization has a lot of very devoted people, including, not the least of which is Janet, who's taking over after me. And I couldn't have done it without Janet. I couldn't have done it without any of the other people here, Lewis, and Lou, Brian, and everybody else who's really helped with the organization. It runs itself. Joe, thank you so much for taking over the rentals. It runs itself. All I have to do is write the columns once a month and sort of make sure nothing goes off the rails. And it's been a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed this organization and hope to continue to be part of it. So thank you very much. We do have an official business meeting that we did not forget to talk about it at my house. I'm not going to say the address on YouTube. You please register for it. Any member is welcome to come. I will say I live in Dallas. I think I'm safe saying that online. And please join us. We sort of go over what we did this year and plot strategy for next year. So come join. There will be donuts. We have not had donuts at business meetings during the pandemic, and I miss them. It's the only time of year when I eat donuts.
By the way, on the website, under club, if you log in, there is a member list, Harold's at,
Okay.
among others.
So let me repeat that for those who didn't hear it. If you are a member, you can log in on our website and get the addresses of members, including myself. So, and the one thing I will really miss, Janet, is that email as president of DVAA.org. Now you get it, and I just want to warn you, there's spam that comes to this.
It's everything that isn't anybody else.
According, yeah, people have $4 million. They don't know what to do with it. They want to. All right, are we to, yeah, Lou, I guess we're up to you. Before we do, Joe, anything on rentals?
The rentals are in your location.
You mean like missiles?
No, we're good. Everything's, great. We started off a little slow this year, but, the rentals, continue picking up, and, we're gonna have a couple more days.
Yeah, on Sunday you'll have a new refractor.
Right.
Right, excellent, excellent.
Anyone?
Okay, see Joe if you want to rent our equipment, which is great. Okay, Lou, you're up.
Where's the camera?
Yeah, step a little further away. There you go.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lou Barbarazzi, Chair of Astrophotography. It's good to see some new faces here, and especially people interested in astrophotography. So we have monthly workshops dedicated specific to astrophotography. Usually we hold them on the Wednesday prior to this meeting. So at 7:30 we hold them on Zoom. It's open to all members. Feel free to join if you the link to the workshop is usually on the calendar. It's always on the calendar. If not, we'll send out an email to let you know how to get there. This week we had a special guest speaker from the Stipends. Agape Celia. He has been with us before. He is an expert at planetary imaging. And we had a blast this time around. He showed us how to image Mars and process Mars with problems. It was cloudy both here and there. And one of our goals was to, when what was happening was Mars was going to pass very close to the moon. From here, from our location, it would have been 3 degrees away. And I don't know how far away it would have been from Cyprus, but that's what we were going to try to find out and measure the difference in the parallax. But the cloud gods did not cooperate. At any rate, the meeting with the workshop went so well that Dapios may even join us as well, he expressed interest in joining us as a I'm not already a member, so I would like to make that motion. I think everybody here that's met him would understand why he's an asset to the club. He's very knowledgeable and easy to understand, despite the fact that he lives in Greece. His English is probably better than mine. But anyway, does anybody have any questions?
You're making a motion, I'll second it. And you have to,
I've heard it.
any discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Only if you help us spell this name.
All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Dapios, welcome to the club.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a quick question. I know I saw you here. Oh, there you are. What's a small to medium telescope? What's a small to medium telescope? Yeah, Janet talked about what you can see in a small to medium telescope. So for those who don't know what that means, what are we talking about in terms of size? A small would be like a 4-inch. Okay, and a medium? Okay, 4 to 8 inch. Okay, thank you. So for those who don't know what we're talking small to medium, because, okay, great. Well, with that, Jeremy is going to present how to watch in the winter without freezing your thing.
Things off, yes, that's exactly right. We are on the internet here, so we gotta be a little careful. All right, so the idea tonight was to have a little program about winter observing. So you're gonna hear a couple of different takes on that. A little bit about what you can see in the winter sky and a little bit about how you can not freeze your things off.
Wow.
Yeah. Here. Here we go. So the first part of this is called Winter Observing 101. And basically the idea here is to give you a little flavor for what we can do in the winter sky. So why winter observing? Well, you get very long nights, you get early sunsets. So right by 6, 7 o'clock, it's already dark, you're observing. By 10 or 11 o'clock, you've been out for a couple hours and your things are telling you it's time to go inside. Right? Unlike the summer where you're waiting until 11 o'clock just for it to get dark. Very often you have cold and clear air, so good transparency. The other side of that is there's a lot more turbulence typically, so the seeing is often not as good. But if you're looking for good transparency in the sky, usually the winter is when to do it. The ecliptic is also very high up. You know, we always have those Mars oppositions where Mars is down in like Sagittarius and it's way down there in the muck. And of course, those are also the closest ones, just the way the orbits work out. But of course, when you have an opposition in the winter, that planet is up in Taurus or Gemini, it's almost straight overhead. So the ecliptic is very high up. A lot of unique objects which can't be seen at any other time of year, and I will get to that in the next couple of slides. And of course, the bragging rights, which is the most important part. You can claim that you were up at Blue Mountain in December or January, and you guys weren't there. So a little bit about why we observe in the winter sky. This is kind of a dramatized picture. That's actually the Andromeda galaxy, but structurally it looks sort of similar to our own. We have the sun sitting where that little blue star is. And basically when we're looking out at the night sky, should we shut the lights?
Sure.
So when you're looking at the night sky, basically away from the direction of the sun, In the summertime, you're looking toward the center of the galaxy. That's toward Scorpius, Sagittarius, Ophiuchus, toward the bulge in the Milky Way. In the spring and the fall, you're looking up or down out of the galactic plane. And in the winter, you're generally looking out towards the edge of the galaxy. So in the summertime, you're looking toward the galactic center. So you're going to see a lot of globular clusters. You're going to see a lot of open clusters. Not too many of the opens, but the opens are a little further away. A lot of nebulas, a lot of different objects like that. In the spring and fall, you're looking up and out of the galactic plane. So that's really the time to see other galaxies. And in fact, even with the naked eye, you can tell. When you go out in the spring or the fall, the sky is kind of barren. There aren't that many stars there. On the other hand, in the winter, you're looking away from the center of the galaxy, but you're also looking towards the Orion arm, which is the nearest arm of the galaxy to us. And that's why there's so many bright stars to the naked eye. Right? We're looking away from the center of the galaxy, but we're looking towards some of the closest big star forming regions, the really young stars, the OB associations around Orion. Right? That's what we're looking at. So the winter has a lot of really unique objects, a lot of star forming regions, open clusters, planetary nebulas, things like that. So when I think of the winter sky, this is kind of the image that I have in my head. So Orion is sort of right in the center. And this is sort of what I think of as the winter sky. It's how I compartmentalize the sky in my mind. Orion is kind of in the middle. That's what I think of as the winter. Over towards the right here, you have Eridanus, which is the river that in my mind separates the fall sky from the winter sky. You have a couple of fall constellations. You have Cetus and Pisces that are kind of exiting stage right over there in the west. Above Orion, you have Perseus, Auriga, you have Taurus, you have Gemini. That's kind of the northern part of the winter sky. Below Orion, you've got Lepus and Columba. And then off toward the east or the left, you've got Monoceros. So you've got a bunch of different nebulas, open clusters there. Below Monoceros, you have Canis Major. And then getting a little further over, you've got Puppis, and then eventually even a little bit into Vela, but that's a little too far south for us. Right, and then you cross over into Hydra, Cancer, Lynx, and eventually Leo, and that sort of in my mind is spring sky. When we talk about winter sky, we're really thinking sort of Orion and kind of the one or two constellations to either side of it. Right, so here's a little bit about why we observe in the winter. This is kind of a busy chart, but basically what I did was I looked up the times that M42, the Orion Nebula, which to me is like the center of the winter sky, right? That's almost in the middle of that diagram. I looked at the times when it is rising, when it's 20 degrees in the east. So not the rising time because you're never going to see it. It's when it gets 20 degrees above the horizon, which is probably at the lowest you'd bother looking at it. The next column is when it's due south at its highest elevation, which is about 45 to 50 degrees from here. The next column after that is when it's setting, when it reaches 20 degrees altitude in the western sky, which is probably about the last time that you can get a good look at it. And then the final two columns, I have sunrise and sunset times. So you can see starting kind of mid to late August, if you wait until about 5 a.m., you can see the Orion Nebula, but you're almost up to sunset at that point. So if you want to see Orion and it's not too cold out, end of August, September, yeah, but you're going to be up really late. If you want Orion to be up kind of before midnight, now you're looking at early to mid-November when daylight savings ends. That kind of helps you a little bit. If you want to be able to see it at a more reasonable hour, now you're getting into December, January, even into February if you want it to be high up, before bedtime. So really you're looking at observing in the winter, unless you really want to stay up really, really late and catch things just as they're rising before the sun comes up. Now, of course, you could try to play the other side and go, I don't want to deal with the winter, I'll wait till the spring. That's kind of risky too, because March, April, the weather's pretty crappy. You can get just day after day. You look at the 10-day forecast and there's just clouds the whole way across. So the spring can be pretty unpredictable, but you lose Orion pretty fast. And that's because sunset starts getting a lot later. Basically, once you hit early March or so, sunset is getting later and later, and Orion's getting lower and lower in the sky. So you lose it really quick. If you can get out there in like early to mid-March, you got a good couple hours that you can take a look at Orion as it's falling in the west. But once you get to about April 15th or so, you are out of luck. Right, so remember, April 15th is taxes and Orion is gone.
Not necessarily in that order.
Yeah, but one of them is for sure, and I guess the other one's kind of for sure too. So that's basically it. That's why we need to observe in the winter. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Al, and he's going to tell us a little bit about some specific things that you can see in the winter.
Firstly. Now we've been asked online to speak up. Yeah, no, it's just as long as they speak like you, not like. Yep.
Okay, John, a few things to maybe focus on, unintended, in the wintertime. Here's a very schematic constellation chart of what can be seen in the winter, and I'm going to focus in on three constellations: Canis Major, Canis Minor, the great dog and the small dog, and next to it would be the constellation that is not an animal. It may sound like it, but Puppis is Latin for keel, and that was part of the larger constellation Argo Navis, which was broken up into Vela, the sail, and Puppis, the keel. So another diagram of where these things are. Obviously, there's Orion that Jeremy just talked about, and Canis Major, and then just east of the hindquarters of the big dog Canis Major is the small constellation called Puppis. Betelgeuse, Procyon, and Sirius are the three brightest stars in that catch your eye right away. And just as we have the summer triangle, we can make a winter triangle. Some people make a winter hexagon, which means there's 6 constellations, but let's keep it simple and just make it 3. So Procyon in Canis Minor, and Sirius in Canis Major, and Betelgeuse in Orion. Once you've got those 3 bright stars, you've got yourself 3 constellations. So here's an image of Canis Major. The bright star is Sirius, and if you start drawing the lines, you've got Sirius being the head of the dog. The star below it is the front leg, and then the hindquarters and the tail. So usually Canis Major is in this position as it's heading towards the west later in the winter. And if you happen to hear a whoop, then it's time to pack up and go home. Okay, so what can we see in Canis Major? Well, there's Sirius, that's fairly bright, it's minus 1.4 magnitude, so really catches your eye. And nearby is an open cluster, M41, SA41. And it's about a half a degree in diameter, so it's not that tiny, you can't miss it. But it is on the faint side if you're expecting something very bright. For you double star fans, there's one called Pi. It's the brightest one is 4.6 magnitude. Its companions a little dimmer at 9.5. There's about 12 arc seconds in separation. Right nearby is another double star for those who like it. The separation is a little larger, 43 arc seconds, about 6 and 8 magnitude star. And down there, forming the tail of Canis Major, is a star that we call Eta, Canis Majoris. Let's take a look a little closely at Sirius. As I mentioned, it's very bright, minus 1.4 magnitude, but it does have a companion, and the companion is about 8th magnitude. And trying to visualize or even image the companion can be a little difficult, but because Sirius A is so bright, Sirius B tends to be overwhelmed by that brightness. So what one can do is kind of put a mask over Sirius A and block out some of that bright light, and Sirius B then will be a little more evident. Now, how do you do that? There are a couple ways of doing it. One is to take an eyepiece, and doesn't matter which one, but if you turn it upside down, you'll see where the arrows are, a little ledge that's called a field stop. And what I did here was to take a piece of aluminum that I had laying around and snipped it to make the contour of the eyepiece, and then held it in place with a piece of electrical tape. And then use that to put in the telescope and block out Sirius to look at Sirius A so I could see Sirius B. Another trick to do is to not do all this, but just to put Sirius A off to the edge of the eyepiece so it's out of the field of view. And I did both a little before Thanksgiving and was able to see Sirius B. Now, this is a very opportune time to try to get to Sirius B, because Sirius B orbits around Sirius A, and right now it's about 11 arc seconds away, so that's a fairly good separation for a double star. And ironically, I just found this out the other day that when Sirius B was first discovered 160 years ago in 1862 by Alvin Clark, the refractor plane, the separation was about 10 arc seconds. So you can relive some history by trying to observe or image Sirius B. As Jeremy mentioned, we're looking away from the center of the galactic Milky Way and looking towards the Orion arm. And what's depicted there is the sun and the solar system with us in it. And we're looking towards Orion and the Windsor constellation. But a lot of times we look up at the constellations, we kind of just take it for granted that everything up there is about the same distance away, much like a painting on a ceiling. But it's very hard to convince ourselves that what we're looking at, the various stars and objects within the constellation are quite a bit of distance away from each other and from us. So what I would like to do is, as this little curved arrow is, we're going to take a 90-degree turn and look at Canis Major as if we were on the left side of the screen and looking at it from a different perspective. So let's take a look at that. There's a schematic that I made of Canis Major as we would perhaps see it up in the sky. The Sirius is up there on top in the dark blue, and that model thing is M41, and the rest of the stars that make up the Canis Major. So now let's take a look at it from a different perspective. And so we're going, looking at it from the side, and it doesn't look like Canis Major anymore. The perspective is a lot different. But if we plug in the distances, we see that Sirius is about 8.6 light years away. M41 is about 2,300 light years, and Eta, the star over there, is about over 3,000 light years away. So that's a fairly large spread of light years of all the stars and objects that make up the major parts of Canis Major. So let's go back to our solar system and look at Canis Major again, and then just plug in the numbers, and you can see get a different perspective on this constellation. There's Sirius and M41 nearby, and we can, it's a binocular object, a little faint in binoculars, but if you zoom in on with a telescope, you can see a nice scattering of stars to make up this open cluster. And it's one thing to say, yeah, I see this open cluster, but it's another thing to actually observe it. And so what you can do is, similar to what Trumpler did, he classified all these open clusters with a classification system. M41 has this particular Trumpler classification. So let's see what that translates into. It is very detached from the background. It stands out quite nicely, and there seems to be a concentration of stars towards the center. So it's a Roman numeral 1. It's composed of a mixture of both bright stars and faint stars. So that's a 3. And it's also richly populated, 50 to 100 or more stars. So it's an R. So it's called a 1,3R type of open cluster. So when you look at open clusters, no matter what time of year, try to get a sense of what Trumpler was trying to classify. How detached is it from the background? Is it really spread out? Are all the stars about the same magnitude, or is it a mixture? Is just a few stars or a lot of stars? And then you can actually try to jot it down in your notes and then compare later, see how close you are. Puppis is just east of Canis Major, and I want to focus in on just an open cluster up there in Puppis, and let's take a look at it on the right side of the screen. We've got another double star, a 4th magnitude and a 13th magnitude, fairly close together, 5 arcseconds Xi, and then there's Omicron. But we're going to use those 2 stars to draw a line, and then an obtuse line making an angle to M93. It's another open cluster, and not surprisingly, M93 has the same Trumpler classification as M41. Very convenient for us anyway. So it is detached from the background. It's a mixture of bright stars and faint stars, and it's fairly richly populated. Moving on to Canis Minor, and the bright star up there is Procyon. For those of you who like double or multiple stars, 14 Canis Minoris is a triple star, the 5th magnitude and the 9th and 10th. And it makes up a little triangle that's seen in that image there. But what I'd like to bring your attention to is Procyon. It too has a companion, Procyon B. Perhaps a little more difficult to snare. It's 10th magnitude compared to 8th magnitude of Sirius B. Procyon B is 10th magnitude. It's a little closer. Here, this image was taken in 10 years ago. It was about 5 arcseconds away. Oops. So there's a challenge for you to both image or visually observe or image Sirius B and Procyon B. So we look forward to seeing what those results are. Lastly, we have been looking at Saturn for quite a bit during the summer, and it's now heading towards the west. The thing about Saturn is that from our perspective, the rings look pretty full. But in about another 7.5 years, the rings will look edge on. Another 7.5 years, the rings will look full again, but we're looking at the underside of the rings. And then another 7.5 years, the rings will be edge on again. And then coming back, we've got a 29.5 year cycle. where we see the upper part of the rings, rings edge on, underside, rings edge on, and then rings upside again. So if we were to put all that together, you can see from our perspective, Saturn is not doing the spinning like a top. It's just our perspective from our orbit and Saturn's orbit. So we get a different view. And looking at the Saturn edge on, I remember seeing it years ago, kind of like a little pencil line going across the planet itself. So there's plenty out there to look in the wintertime, and Jeremy's going to talk about how to stay warm as you join us.
Al, can I ask this first question? I never really noticed puppets before. There's a couple of stars that are pretty easy spots in the
These, right,
hindquarters.
right,
Okay,
yeah.
I'll look for it next time.
Good.
Turn on the slideshow here. All right, so as promised, how do we keep our things from freezing in the winter? So a couple of general principles here, and then I'll have a little show and tell. Whatever the weatherman says, expect it to be about 10 to 15 degrees colder than that. Because A, if it turns out to be 10 to 15 degrees warmer, that's great, but it might turn out to be colder. Right? Now they can make an error one way or the other. The other thing is the weatherman is usually going to tell you the temperature in town. Most of our observing sites are a little bit further away, maybe on top of the hill. It gets colder a little bit faster. So whatever they say, subtract about 10 or 15 degrees. That's what you should expect. And then prepare for a little bit more than that. Because I can tell you, I have never regretted having an extra set of clothes in the car that I didn't need, but I've had a couple uncomfortable nights where I wish I brought another set. So always expect it to be colder than they say. Another idea is be prepared to spend the night. I usually like to just throw a sleeping bag or something in the car, a couple of snacks, things like that, because you never know if the car doesn't start, flat tire, something's wrong with the scope, and you realize that you're not going to be able to take it down until morning. Be prepared that you might be there overnight, waiting until the morning to get out. Or you might just be tired and figure maybe I'll knock out in the car for a few hours before leaving. The buddy system is a good idea. Being alone at an observing site is, creepy in the summer, dangerous in the winter. So it's always a good idea to be there with somebody else. So that's where the groups.io is really useful. Hey, any crazy people out there want to go to Blue Mountain? Heading up there. All right. So as far as how to dress, I would say rather than thinking about the one big bulky coat, think about layers. Think about layering yourself so you get air trapped in between. You want to start from a good base layer that fits fairly tightly and wicks away any sweat. You also need to think about your head. You need to think about your extremities, anything that's exposed to the air. Hand warmers and toe warmers are another good thing to think about, and I'll show a few examples of that. And finally, don't forget your feet. In fact, your feet might be one of the most important things, because if your feet are cold, you are miserable. That's about the only way there is to put it. If your feet freeze, you are absolutely miserable, and it can be dangerous too. You can get frostbite and not even realize it. So a few general ideas here, and I'll go into this in the show and tell. Long underwear is a good idea. A hat or a hood to cover your head. Insulated coveralls. That's actually my big secret that I was turned on to a couple of years ago. And I find that really makes a big difference. Maybe some heavy socks, a good pair of boots, which you might want to buy about a size or two large because you may be wearing heavy socks under it. You may have toe warmers in there, so a little bit big. And hand warmers, there are a couple of different types, and I will show some of those. Actually, if we can turn the lights on, I'll have a little show and tell here. Got to put the microphone down. So here we go. We're going to start off Good old long underwear, can't go wrong with that. I was gonna try these on, but I figured we're gonna save that for the DVAA only fans. It'll be the only channel where they pay you to put clothes on.
A special perk of showing up in person.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe after the meeting we'll do that. All right, the long underwear. Always a hat is a good idea. There's an old saying about losing 50% of the heat through your head. I think that's wrong. The numbers are off, but it's still a fairly good number. Make sure that it covers your ears. As far as covering my neck, I like to wear a turtleneck. So that kind of adds to the base layer and that covers your neck up to here. I find that more comfortable with scarves and things like that. I just don't like them being very constricting. I do like something with a hood. The hood in addition to the hat, because that also keeps a little bit of the wind away from your face. It's also a little bit of a shield when you're trying to look at the eyepiece. So on the topic of eyepieces, while you were talking, I was so inspired by the idea of covering half the lens. I took all your Teleview eyepieces and I blackened half the lens with a Sharpie. They'll work great now. And these are coveralls. You can get them like this. This is the Michael Myers official color. These are insulated ones. So you can find these in a lot of sporting goods stores. For some reason, they all seem to be designed like for lumberjacks who are about 6'4". So they will be a little bit long. But actually what I find is when I wear these, my feet usually don't get cold. And I think part of the reason is that it keeps your legs warmer, so it keeps good blood flow into your feet. So if you can keep your legs warm, I think your feet stay a lot warmer. Put this on. Yeah. There we go.
First reverse fees in my life.
There we go. Yeah, you can put your donations in for put more clothes on. And there we go. I'm good to go now. As far as active elements go, because obviously my hands are still exposed, my feet are maybe a little exposed. You can get hand warmers. So these come in a variety of different types. Probably the most common are these chemical type ones. So you open these up, they're about $1 or $2 each. Kind of shake them a little bit, leave them in your pockets, and they'll produce heat for a couple hours. I found anywhere from, this is starting to get hot, anywhere from about 2 to 4 hours. They do expire eventually, so you have to check the date. This is a great 2014. All right. Here's another brand of them. There are also reusable ones. Basically, the way that those work is you put them in boiling water for about 5 or 10 minutes. They turn back to a liquid again. Usually there's like a little metal tab in it. You twist it a couple of times and then it starts to react. What I found with those is they don't last very long. You maybe get like 20 or 30 minutes out of them, but they're reusable. Pop them into boiling water for about 10 minutes and it liquefies again. The chemistry is that it's a super saturated solution, very exothermic. So when you basically do that little twisting thing, you eventually stimulate the reaction. There are these electrical ones, these battery operated ones. The last time I gave this presentation, I described these as novelties. But I'd say that in the past few years, the battery technology has improved on them. So the nice thing about these, they don't get super hot and they don't last as long as the chemical ones, but you can turn them on and off. So I can turn it on, it heats up, keep it in my pocket, and then if I don't need it for a while, I can just shut it off when I'm through with it. Final type are these old school Zippo warmers. If you've ever done any hunting, you may use these. And the way those work is you pour a little bit lighter fluid into here. You basically fill up this reservoir, and then you'll light this with a cigarette lighter. And these things actually get quite hot, and they'll last 12 hours or more. So these are nice. So these are the serious ones. They take a little bit more preparation, but you know these you can even throw it in your sleeping bag and you'll keep the whole thing warm. There's that. There are also toe warmers. So these are basically the same thing as the disposable hand warmers, but they're a little bit thinner, and basically they're designed to stick them on the bottom of your sock, and it sits in your shoe. Sometimes if it's really cold, I'll put one under my toes and I'll put one over. You have two of them, make a little foot sandwich in there. keeps you a little extra warm. You don't want to put them in too early because then your feet start to sweat. And then you got wet socks, and that's not fun to have. So those are hand warmers, foot warmers, coverall, hats. Did I miss anything?
I strongly recommend gloves for movement. I would have thought to leave the fingertips there so you can operate with them. Well, I've got a set of knickers where they cover the top of the fingers actually fold back when I need to operate with it. So again, you can get those for a sporting goods store because some hunters are using guns.
Yeah, shooter's gloves or weightlifting gloves also will be like to have the fingers open. I actually find if you keep your hands in your pockets when you're not using them, that works pretty well too, or use the hand warmers. Noses, that's one thing. And that is where your good old COVID mask comes in handy. Get out of here. And there's enough pockets. Your nose starts to get cold. Put one of these bad boys on for a bit. Not a great idea to do that when you're at the eyepiece because you're going to fog everything up. But if you're away from it for a while, you can warm yourself up that way. Lou,
Wool socks will help.
wool socks. Yeah, they're good because they'll wick away the sweat.
Yeah, you don't want to get, once your feet get wet, you're done.
I actually have electric socks. So.
Electric socks.
Electric socks, right?
We're gonna get you an electric chair too.
Yeah, but that won't keep my toes warm.
So the Zippo type, lighter warmer, where did you get that?
I actually bought it on Amazon. I think they're actually made up in Bradford, PA, which is not far from where Cherry Springs is. Maybe that could be a side trip if we go to Cherry Springs. Visit the Zippo factory. Yeah, Phil.
So for your neck, one of the things that I always do, if you get a buff and you keep it around your neck, then you can do the same thing as you're doing for the eyepiece, for like keeping your nose warm.
Pull it up over.
Pull
Yeah,
up, but then it funnel walks you right up to your neck, so it stays in your face.
that's good. And then if you want to rob a bank on your way home,
Plus,
they
yeah,
can
the
afford
bonus.
it. No. Oh wait, this is on the internet. We got to be careful. All right, so I should have one another part here, which is a attitude latitude adjustment. If you wanted to do a completely different perspective from this, there's the Winter Star Party, which is down in the Florida Keys. Next year it'll be between February 13th and 19th. So I did get to go there back in 2016. Normally I camp them in the middle of teaching, but I had a sabbatical that year. You can see I'm dressed a little bit differently from what you see here. So the way I got there was I took the Amtrak auto train. Kind of an interesting experience. You drive down to Lorton, Virginia, which is just south of Washington, D.C. They got a really nice system. You basically drive up, they take pictures of your car, they document any damage that was on there beforehand. You can't get off, oh, you put this scratch in the side of my car. They can go right back to the video. It's a nice system. They load them up into the car carriers. Then you get in. I got a sleeper car. You can get a regular seat, but that doesn't sound very pleasant for 17 hours sitting in the chair. So I had a little sleeper cabin and basically drive right along I-95. In fact, I think their phone number is 1-800-SKIP-I-95, something like that. We arrived there. That's actually the observing site that you see at the lower left. So there is a beach there. They call it the berm. So you can set up on that and you have 0-degree horizons. That's facing due south, and the nearest civilization is Cuba. And actually the northern part of the island is all mountainous anyway. So there's basically 0 light pollution. You can see all the way down to the horizon. The only thing is you're setting up on sand. So you got to worry about that getting into your optics, and you can't bring a car out to there. So you have to carry in, carry out. In fact, the last night I was there, I just left my scope. I found some guy with a little portable 8-inch scope set up there. We were just observing the jewel box, the coal sack. You can actually see the Southern Cross right above the horizon. Just barely makes it up there. Yeah. Daytime downward being like in the 70s or so, maybe nighttime is like 50s, 60s, something like that. So pretty warm. Yeah, there are little huts there. Probably if you go there now, it's going to look totally different. because I think they took a direct hit from Hurricane Irma, or one of those, and they got basically totally destroyed, so they had to rebuild it. There was a nice, I think it was a 32-inch scope, and it happened to see there, and then there's a little 25-inch or something next to it. A little one, a small to medium scope. Lots of other stuff to do. There's some beaches there. You can go swimming. There's vendors set up. There's an aquarium in the area. And then at the end, back to reality. The flags you see, that was the week that Judge Scalia died. So I basically get back into town. I saw the flags are half-staffed and then found out. And then, of course, we start heading back north and we're back to the reality of the winter. All right, so that was my presentation. Jan, you want to go next? Yeah. I don't remember exactly how far it is, but there are like regular places where you can set up right next to the car. You know, you wouldn't want to carry yours that far. Yeah. You might even consider having a bigger scope and a smaller scope. That might be a way to
One more question.
yeah.
Just to follow up on, and one more question.
Yeah.
REI carries a variety of included.
Okay, so that's if you want to pick them up locally.
Yeah, one in contact and one in don't go down and.
Just a minute, turn the lights down a little bit.
Thank you.
So on the theme of maybe what we need to do is go someplace warm. Not only are we in Hawaii, we're on the top of viewing a volcano. No, I had the opportunity to go to Hawaii a couple of months ago because my daughter moved there and it was a good excuse to go visit. So we took the opportunity to go stargazing, and I thought my experiences might be an interesting topic for tonight. But took a little detour here because the volcano was not erupting when we were there, but it's so timely. I couldn't avoid talking about it a little bit. So this is a view of the Mauna Loa volcano from Mauna Kea, and Mauna Kea is the big mountain where all the best observing the best research, where all the research telescopes are. So to talk a little bit about
Yeah. Could you use the mic?
oh, I'm sorry.
Probably on.
Better?
Better, thank you so much.
Sorry. So just to talk a little bit about the geography, there are three major volcanoes on the Big Island of Hawaii. Mauna Loa, that's the one that's erupting now, the photo that you just saw. Then there's Kilauea, and this is Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, which includes both of them. Kilauea is the one that has been erupting at a low level for quite a while. Mauna Kea is where is a volcano that is not erupting, and that's where all the research telescopes are, the famous CAP and the other 13 telescopes. If you're going for a general vacation, you're probably going to be somewhere here on the West Coast, especially in the Kona area, which means that you're pretty far from Mauna Kea. This is about at least an hour and a half drive to get there. Now, if you're staying in Hilo, which is a cute little town, but it's not quite the same beach atmosphere as on the other side of the island, it is a little closer to Mauna Kea, but at any rate, you really need to plan a full day if you're going to go, planning to go to Mauna Kea. Again, trying to be timely, I just thought it was interesting to think about the astronomical consequences of the volcano that's currently erupting. One of the most important is the Mauna Loa Observatory has been measuring CO2 levels since 1958. And because the volcano will interfere with accurate measurements, we are going to have a gap in the famous healing curve. And that'll be a gap as long, that will continue as long as the Mauna Loa volcano continues to erupt. There's also the asteroid terrestrial impact last alert system. Last alert, I guess, is the really near asteroid. And it has been shut down due to airborne ash. So hopefully, I've been told the volcano is slowing down a little bit, so hopefully they'll be able to get that up and running soon. Then there's also a solar observatory, but that's duplicated in other parts of the world, so that's not a huge issue in terms of loss of science. And then the high seas facility, which is a habitat for 6 people, which is you can live in for several months. And that's currently uninhabited. So among the science that's being interrupted by the active eruption of the Mauna Loa volcano, I put this one kind of at the top there, the healing curve gap that we're going to have. Okay, back to what do you do if you're on Big Island, you want to go to Mauna Kea, how do you go about it? As I said, it's kind of a far drive, but it's definitely special. I'm going to tell you more about that. So one of the most famous things to do on Mauna Kea is to see the sunset. And here's a group of people, you see they're dressed really warmly because it's very cold there. You need a parka on the summit. There are about 8 tour outfits that are licensed to drive to the summit. And they take you there in a 4x4 van with an altitude acclimation stop at the visitor center. And you get to see the sunset, but then you have to basically get right in the van and go down because they don't want to be taking people down in the dark. So actually, you don't see much in the way of stars at the summit in Mauna Kea. The commercial tours, people rave about the sunset, the summit, the view of the Milky Way. Somebody's raving about the Constellation tour. I guess those are people who don't do it all the time like we do. And it's obviously great in the commercialized tours to have someone else doing the driving because it's a very tortuous road. But these trips are 6 to 8 hours, most of it spent in the van, with only 45 minutes at the summit and about 30 minutes at the visitor center. They cost at least $250 per person, and then the ones that have dinner, you're getting up to $300 to $350 per person. So we opted for a do-it-yourself experience, and that's what I'm going to tell you more about. So I think when you're leaving your hotel, you're at sea level, and you're going to be going up to 13,803 feet at the top of Mauna Kea. So you do have to allow yourself time to acclimate. There's a recreation center at 6,500 feet, and the actual visitor center is at 9,200 feet. So these are both places on the way that you can acclimate. Now, at the level above the visitor center, if you really want to go up there on your own without a tour guide, it requires advanced driving skills and a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and they are really serious about that. It's a steep gravel road with multiple switchbacks. At the visitor center, the rangers basically block the way, and they will inspect your vehicle to make sure it's 4x4. They interview you to see how experienced you are with this kind of driving. You're not allowed to have any mud on your vehicles. If you have a rental car, you have to get a special permit from the rental folks. And they say, come down from the summit within 20 minutes after sunset in order to get down while it's still safe. So this is not for the faint-hearted. And this is not what we decided to do. Just to show you what you're dealing with here, here's the road that is somewhat steep that comes up to the 9,000 foot elevation level where the visitor center is. And this is where you'll find some marginal facility. This big red block here is where the rangers hang out and prevent you from going up if you're not the right kind of person. And you see most of this road going up to the summit is gravel, very windy, very steep, And that's why they don't want you coming down in the dark. So it's very dark in the whole area of Mauna Kea. Here's the big island here. So actually you don't, it's as dark at the visitor center as it is on the summit of Mauna Kea. The thing is though, at the visitor center, you do have headlights from people leaving the parking area and people coming down the mountain. But after you wait for that to pass, it's just as dark at the visitor center as it is at the summit. There's also a nice little overlook area. This is at the visitor center. It's not at the summit. You have to make a pretty steep climb, but you're rewarded with a place where you can sit. Some people set up tripods there, and you have a really gorgeous view of the sunset. You can see here we're well above the clouds at the visitor center level, and this is at 9,000 feet, not the 13,000 plus feet of the summit. This is a picture my husband took the night we were there. We had a nice crescent moon, beautiful clear sky, and the clouds are well below us. And this is the visitor center area at the overlook. So this is a photograph of the best area we found for setting up a telescope. I have to say, it's not great, but it is somewhat shielded from the parking lot, nearby porta potties, and as I said, this area does get to the same level of darkness as the summit, except for the car headlights. So we set up in this area here. We were the only telescope there, and we had a lot of privacy and a lot of time. And they don't kick you out; you can be there forever. So, what's my suggested itinerary for everyone that's going to sign up for this trip? First of all, you do have to call the visitor center prior to the trip because sometimes they have public programs, and if they have public programs, you're not allowed to set up your own telescope. I guess they don't feel like they don't have any room to accommodate that. If you're leaving from Kona, which is the resort area, you need to leave about 3.5 to 4 hours before sunset to make sure you'll have time to acclimate and you'll have time to get where you need to be. Suggestion is to stop at this little cinder cone parking lot for a short and interesting walk to help you acclimate. That's at about 6,500 feet. And there's also bio-break facilities, playground at this area called the Gilbert Keeley Rec Center. You should get to the Mauna Kea Visitor Center about an hour before sunset. Cross the street and hike up to the sunset overlook, and really, it's a major hike. You have to allow yourself at least 30 minutes.
Is that more difficult because of the altitude?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you would think that, you would assume that, but we didn't have any trouble. So, yeah. Yes.
It turns out that the more athletic you are, actually the more difficult it is to be up top because you're doing more anaerobic digestion of oxygen. And so if you're not like a lazy fat guy like me, one place on the planet, you have an advantage.
I second that.
Yeah, this hike up to
I
the,
mean, what you said, not the lazy guy.
I second that too.
Exactly.
this hike up to the overlook was, I mean, we did it with no problem, and my husband and I. So it's not that it's mostly rocky, and you have to go slowly because it's rocky, but it's not super steep. But you have to allow yourself a lot of time because you're going reasonably far, and we didn't have any idea that we needed time to get up there. So we were running up basically. You can you can set up viewing equipment at the overlook, and there are some other spots where you could actually set up there on the overlook. You just have to watch the weather because it can get really windy there. You're somewhat unprotected. And coming back, it's going to be rocky, steep, and dark. So you have to think about that when you're going to be bringing equipment back down. After sunset, we turned to the visitor center and set up the viewing equipment. And as I said, the picnic table area was the best place we could find that was shielded from the lights. And if you plan to observe late, and I would do this the next time, consider staying overnight in the rec area, which is only a half an hour away, or in the town of Hilo, which is more like an hour away, as opposed to staying there late and then having to drive a good hour and a half, 2 hours to get home.
Not so good settled way.
Yeah.
Jan, what about oxygen? Is that available?
You mean oxygen therapy for people?
Bring some, yeah, you mentioned.
You don't need oxygen at the 9,000-foot level. The people that work at the telescopes always have it available, and I think they even encourage people to use it all the time. That's at the 14,000 foot. But if you're just going to briefly see the sunset, what they advise is to acclimate at the visitor center for 30 minutes to an hour. And then you don't spend much time at the summit and you'll be okay usually. Yeah.
I have one story about oxygen.
I have one story about oxygen, which may help. When you're at 14,000 feet, 60% of the oxygen you'll have at sea level. And I was in the Gemini telescope doing an interview with a guy there, and blah, blah, blah. We're in some room, we're talking, and it's about time to go to the main floor. And I stop the guy and say, I have to grab my camera for this thing. And I start frantically looking over to find my camera, which is hanging around my neck. And so never underestimate how 60% oxygen can knock you on your ass.
Was that an okay word?
And
YouTube, they've heard worse. Okay.
And what I learned when I was researching this is that lack of oxygen at the summit actually interferes with your vision. And so you can't do visual observing as well at 14,000 feet as you can do at 9,000 feet. Yeah.
Did you mention something about out there?
My daughter got one. It was just a 4-inch reflector.
I mean, you know, the sky and all.
We weren't trying to do anything real elaborate. We were just mostly binocular observing and seeing things that were easy to see. It's a long way to carry special equipment. And I did try to check to see if there was anything I could rent on island, and I wasn't successful with that. So, I don't know. That's a tough part of the whole thing for sure. And I have a couple of resources if anyone's interested in checking them out. I'll post this on the website, so we'll have the presentations available for people to check it out, right? And we're going to astrophotography now.
Yeah, so Lou and company, come on up. The Hawaii stove rental sounds like a good idea for a business. And I want to join in, we move to Hawaii and then stove
Yeah.
people.
There is none. We had a bar from the club. Yeah, the high-low.
The tours that go up to the summit will have a telescope there for you to look in, but you know what that's
Yeah.
gonna be. It's gonna be
No, you
a
need what you
2
did.
second.
Go low. The problem I had with it is there are too many stars.
Yeah.
I couldn't recognize anything.
Oh,
There's just too much stuff going on.
All right, now we have Lou Barbarez, Gary Trapisano, and Joe Lamb. We're going to talk about winter astrophotography.
Okay, when I first joined the club, first thing I did was actually, I had already bought a telescope. I told my wife I was buying a telescope. It was an 8-inch box comes in the mail. You said you were buying a telescope, not the Hubble. So anyway, tech health, and, you know, it got, I don't know, maybe the first winter, I realized, what was really involved in observing it seriously. I caught my pants on fire because I was so cold. I was standing too close to the, propane heater over at the, where was it, our observing city at the gun range, which was also the scary thing. I didn't like that, you know. So I put up with that for a couple of years. And then a friend of mine found a DSLR camera in the parking lot at a department store in Seattle. And he asked me if I wanted it, and yeah, I wanted it. I sent it over, and bye-bye to the job, and I bought a SCT, and I never looked back after that. So when I, you know, at that point in the club, not too many people were doing astrophotography, and you know, all the resources that were available were online. And you know, now you have us to help you, but there are a bunch of resources available online. Tonight there's only 3 of us really presenting, and a lot of the work we're showing is going to be redundant, but there are different views of the same objects or similar objects. So I don't know how this poker works. Is there a laser on this thing? Yeah. No. Oops. Move on again.
Oh, now it's the top button. You hold it up.
How do we put this? How do we put this back?
Oh. You hear it.
This button here. All right, so here we go. Here's the winter sky that we were talking about before. The Milky Way is along this axis here. There's Orion, and most of the images I'll be showing you will be in this area. Here's Orion's belt. You know, the Great Orion Nebula in there. And you know, the Pleiades up in there. And one more thing I'll be showing you is down here the Lord's home. Okay, so this is an H alpha version of or filter of the Flame Nebula. This star right here is Omicron, the very first year of the Orion's gun. This was taken with a DSLR camera and just a hydrogen alpha filter. It's a 12 nanometer bandwidth. I think it's 656 nanometers is the H alpha image. This is the Horsehead Nebula, along with NGC 2023, which is a reflection nebula. This in the back, the red is IC 443, which is an emission. An emission nebula. This region here is a star forming region, and it looks like. Look carefully, I'm not sure if you can see here, but you can see streaks on the area here that come right into the dark area. It's where all the stars are born. This is the beginning of life here. It's pretty amazing. This is just charged hydrogen atoms with the electrons just ripped off. That's all it is, just protons. Can't get simpler than that unless you go into quantum mechanics. is the same region of the area we're looking at. So there's Almatac, that's the flame, and then there's the horse head. Let's see with respect to each other where they are. Now, it was kind of tricky taking this image here because Almatac's right here is really bright. So that's why you see this on a little bit of an angle. I had to avoid the glare from that star.
If you want, I can use the Sharpie on half the land.
Great part about doing astrophotography, unlike, Jeremy goes through a lot to stay warm. Just to squint through the lens to see if there's, what is this fuzzy stuff? I don't know. Well, I'm freezing my things off. I'm eating an ice cream bar inside my basement while collecting this data. Yeah. This is the Orion Nebula. Okay, so this is, you can actually see this with the naked eye. This is a pretty interesting object. Again, it's also, you can see the red and, oops, yeah, that's where it's located. You can see the red and the, I'm going too fast here. The red and the blue areas, the emission and the reflection nebula. Again, this is, star forming region. This is a stellar nursery. These things are peppered all around the galaxy. You can actually see some of these. If you look at Andromeda through, a photograph, or if you look at the triangle in another galaxy. Unfortunately, with the naked eye, you really can't see much, but that's why cameras come in handy. Jeremy, I'm trying to get you into astrophotography. At any rate, and again, I'll show you where we're looking at here. So here is Orion's belt. These three stars here. There's the flame, there's the horse head, and then this is Orion, the sword. So if you put if you look right at the sword, the middle star here, well, it's a bunch of stars, with binoculars or the naked eye, you'll be able to see the Orion Nebula. You won't see the color, but you'll see and at least it'll look like an umbrella shape. This is also another nebula. This is the top of the Orion Nebula here. And this is the Running Man Nebula. This is my favorite nebula. It's often overlooked because it's in the shadow of the Great Orion Nebula, which, we just looked at back here. But it is, with respect to this nebula, right over here. And I'll show you. There it is, the Running Man. You can barely even see it because it's not nearly as bright as the Orion Nebula. But I love this nebula. This little guy, you see how he looks when he's running? I don't know what he's running to or what he's trying to catch, but it looks like he's jumping over this dog's head here or whatever it is. And then we have the last image I'm going to show you is Thor's helmet. And again, Thor's helmet is lower in the sky. I wish I could see this area here a little better, but here we go. So this particular nebula, this type of nebula is very similar to another famous nebula, the Bubble Nebula. This is a Wolf-Rayet star that is responsible for creating this particular nebula. Eventually, this will go supernova if it already hasn't. Who knows? How many of these have already gone supernova, or how long we have to wait? But the light hasn't gotten here yet. If it has, and I think that's all I have. Which one?
Give a rough outline of this.
Okay, yeah, you want to hear most of this stuff, let's see here. Everything that you see here, except for this guy, was taken with, a Canon EOS Rebel 1000D that was obsolete in 2009. So you really don't need expensive gear. The key was, that all these DSLR cameras have an infrared cut filter in front of it. And that IR cut filter matches closely with your eye sees, since the sensor sees for a further spectrum than what your eye does. So this is a full spectrum camera. I had somebody remove it, and they replaced it with a clear glass filter, which was the exact same thickness, so that this would be able to focus again in the same place. This particular image was with the newer camera I just bought, that these two guys over here convinced me to buy. Thank you. It was on sale. Actually, it's on sale now for $1,700 or $1,800. It's a DVAA ASI 2600 MC. Is a color camera, one-shot color, so you don't have to worry about using filters or whatever. But as you can see, it takes spectacular images. I mean, there's no way I could expect that from the DSLR. This was only 3 hours of data. Okay, I mean, you know, actually, let me go back quick here. This was 3 hours of data. See how faint this is? This was about 6 hours of data, maybe. This is very bright. It wasn't very, it was 80 frames, and there's maybe, I don't know, 40 seconds each, 45 seconds each. This was 18 hours of data that I had to sift through to get this. I threw away about 5. Again, this was about 4 hours of data. So you can see the difference between this camera was 3 hours, and look how rich and beautiful the colors came out. This is not me. This is the camera for this. And I just pointed it to the right place. All right, any other questions?
Good job.
What's your question?
So the Orion Nebula in your photo, it has like a very rich color scheme. Did you put some sort of a filter on your telescope to get that?
No, this was, I removed the filter. So this is just a full spectrum view. Your eye can't see this.
Oh.
So this is yeah, if you have a DSLR camera, you just remove the IR cut filter and you'll be able to get this view. It's very, very brilliant. Yes. Various pieces of software. So, you know, we generally what we do is we take several images and we stack them together. The software to do that, most of that stuff is available for free, and it uses specific algorithms to match pixels that are similar and keep out outliers. And you know, that's why everything. If there's like a satellite that came through here, it would be different color than all the rest of us, and the software recognizes that and kick it out. But this particular, gosh, I've done this one so long ago, I don't remember. I think I used Photoshop for very minimal processing. The key to, you know, at least my point of view, the key to good data is good pictures is to do. To get good data, and the better data you have, the less processing you have to do. I mean, processing is there basically to bring out, you know, bring out some of the richness, but if you have to do too much processing, you didn't collect enough data, at least from my point of view. Any other questions? I haven't. I'm not an expert on planetary imaging, but Joe is very good at planetary imaging. Tom is very good at planetary imaging, and We just, invited, Agapia Sevilla, who's a planetary, world famous planetary, engineer to the club. So he'll be joining us and be part of the group. If you want to watch, his techniques, are astrophotography workshop that we presented on Wednesday is available on YouTube. You're gonna see that. Any other questions?
Yeah, he's also presented to other American, AIC, Kalamazoo, so he's done some, pretty extensive, seminars for, the American audiences, and, he's really very, very good and great techniques. And all his seminars are online, you can pick them up and, learn, flow, how to, process and things like that. But he's really excellent, and he might be coming to his position. That would be very well said, yeah, if he can get out there. So, but, thank you, both. Yeah, really good job.
Great images. I have some images I'm going to show that are mostly photographic, since we're talking about astrophotography, but some are visual also. To me, the early part of anticipation of the winter constellations is when the Pleiades starts to peek through the trees. In September, October, you kind of get a little hint of this. Okay, it's coming around the corner, and we're going to have some winter stuff happening soon. So the Pleiades is in the constellation Taurus, and it's up at the top part of the constellation. So this is a shot from my front yard of M45, or the Pleiades. This is shot with an 85 millimeter refractor with a focal reducer, so it's effectively 480 millimeter focal length. With the same camera Lou was talking about. I live in a fairly light polluted area, suburban Philadelphia, outside of the Norristown area, right near Lansdale. So my sky on a good night is Boreal 6, SQM reading of 19. A lot of nights I'm at 18 or something. Every picture I'm showing you tonight, with the exception of, I think, one, possibly two, is shot from this location. So even if you live in a relatively light polluted area, you can still do effective astrophotography. Over to the east of the constellation Taurus is the constellation Auriga. And in the center of that, there are some very interesting visual objects in there, but in the center of that constellation right there, there's a high nebulosity area, basically a starburst area called the Flaming Star Nebula. And this is a shot of the Flaming Star Nebula, and also what's sometimes called the Tadpole Nebula. Here's the Flaming Star here, and the Tadpole Nebula here. This star, this star here, A Orgi, is lighting up basically that whole area of nebulosity, while the nebula, the gases in that nebula are actually feeding that star. So it's a very symbiotic kind of relationship where the gases are feeding the stars are being born, and then the stars are lighting up the gases. There's an open cluster in the Tadpole Nebula, and I'm going to go to the full frame view of that. So this is the Flaming Star, and then the Tadpole here. This is the open cluster. The reason why it's called the Tadpole are these little formations here. This is an interesting perspective. I generally like pictures with stars in them. In fact, I used to shun pictures without stars in them. But when I started to shoot some of the nebulosity, you can really, if you remove the stars, and the software that you use the process can do this. It's actually free software to remove the stars. Really allow me to remove the kind of distraction of the stars and really see the structure of the nebulosity. So if I look at a close-up of the Flaming Star,
the star that's lighting this up is sitting there, but you can really get a sense of that structure in that nebulosity in those gases, which to me, I spend time zooming in and just being fascinated by it. So I'm doing more where I process the full picture because I still like the full picture with the stars. But looking at it without the stars has given me a little more insight into what's going on there. I'm also a visual observer, so I really enjoy spending time at the eyepiece. And what I'm finding is the more I dig, the better I get at astrophotography, the more I'm really honing my visual skills, and the more I'm really appreciating what I'm seeing visually, because I can study these and really zoom in and get a sense of what's going on. This is the tadpole portion, the tadpole nebula portion without the stars. And you can see the two little structures here. These are starburst regions, similar to what's in like M16, the famous Hubble Pillars of Creation photograph. And then Orion. Lou showed a picture of the Horsehead. I shot one up at Blue Mountain with a 4-inch refractor. And there's a lot of stuff going on there. This is the flame, and then the Horsehead with the nebulosity. And here's that shot, without the annotation. So again, the flame nebula, the Horsehead, and then all of those structures. I did the same thing here. I thought, what would this look like without the stars? And if you pull those stars out, you really get a sense of how dynamic and how complex the structures are underlying those stars. I'll put the stars back in just to get a quick sense of that. And then over to the east, a little bit later in the night, this is effectively like now, or if you, this would be like 10 o'clock on the 15th of December, is the Rosette Nebula. So if you were up a little bit later, 2 weeks ago, when I shot the next picture, you get a sense of that. This is an open cluster. It's AGC 2244, open star cluster that's in the center here, which again is lighting this up and it also being born or has been formed by the gases in this. This was shot with an 85mm refractor from my backyard in a relatively light polluted area. I did use a filter, a dual narrowband filter to get rid of light pollution, but there's no false color in this. This is color calibrated according to spectrometric data. There's a shot of it full frame. And then I did the same thing. I thought, what does this look like without stars? So there it is without the stars. This structure here is very similar to what Lou was saying with the bubble nebula, where you have this gases that are basically reflecting the light from the bright star in the center there. And then there's a close-up of that region. So beautiful dark structures, beautiful gaseous structures. It just blows my mind that this stuff is out there. And then lastly, there's the Heart Nebula. So this is not technically a winter constellation. This is in Cassiopeia, which you think of as a summer. But in the winter, those circumpolar constellations, which are there all year, are really, really high. They're almost at the zenith. So photographically and visually, this is a great time to look at some summer, what you would think of as summer constellations, because they're so high up in the sky, you're cutting through all of the light pollution and turbulence and all that. You're getting the darkest skies. So this is the Heart Nebula. And this is a photographic object. There is an open cluster here, which is in actually NGC 896 is here. I'm not sure what the designation of that open cluster is. The nebulosity is the IC 805. So again, a lot of structure in there, and just beautiful photographic part is. This is shot with an 85mm refractor from my backyard. This is about 5.5 hours worth of data, just to put it in perspective. 5 minutes sub-exposure, so 60-something, 5 minutes sub-exposure. Processed in pixel site. And then this is a close-up of that core.
And you're in a gem mount, right?
I am I'm using the German equatorial mount, so it's tracking and there's a guide for it. And that's it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Lamb, and I just have a couple quick images to show you. These were all taken with the same instrument. It's basically a variation of the Schmidt panel, and it's nice. It's relatively quick. It shoots at f2.2, and most of these images were taken from my backyard. I live in a Portal 7 area, and my backyard is very, very bright. There's spotlights and all kinds of things, and you know, we could land a couple airplanes in my backyard. It's so bright. These are my attempts to photograph, and all these images all these objects are visual as well as photographic. So for the most part, they can easily observe with modest equipment, and for some of them, even from light polluted areas. So I'm just going to kind of go through these really quick. And a lot of these are staples, and I'm sure that some of them observe them visually at least. So the first one I wanted to talk about is M35, which is an open cluster in the constellation of Gemini. And associated with that is another open cluster called 2158. And this cluster is about 2,700 light years. The smaller cluster, 2158, which is right there, is about 4 times farther and a little bit older. And on the image, when it came in, it's actually a little bit redder. So I'm wondering if this has to do with maybe, red giants more so, or maybe I just screwed up the processing. But I actually checked online, and there are a lot of images of this, and actually that cluster shows up a little bit redder. And there are a couple of other images here, clusters here as well. Just an enlargement of those two. Right in the foot of one of the guys in Gemini. Just a close-up of those. And these are very, very bright, easily seen through a scope. Even a small telescope, a 6-inch scope, will pick these up very easily. A couple of other little clusters there as well. These are right along the plane of the Milky Way. So that area is loaded with galactic clusters. And these are among the most the brightest in the lunar sky. And this is M46 and M47, and this is in the constellation of Puppis, close to Orion, close to Canis Major, also along the plane of the Milky Way. And it's actually associated with another cluster called M47. M46 is a little bit farther. M47 is about 1,500 light years. M46 is about 4,900 light years. And interestingly, on M46, which is the furthest, go back one slide. There's actually a superimposed planetary nebula that looks very, very much like the Ring Nebula. And visually, these are really very, very bright and nice to see in a telescope, even a small scope like a 6 or 8 inch scope. And the planetary actually shows up quite well as well. So, these aren't really faint objects, and you can easily acquire them. Listed with M47. And here's a shot taken by the Hubble of that superimposed planetary. That's actually a foreground object, not associated with the cluster itself. And they can be easily found from Sirius. In fact, I have a question from one of the members of the audience about this. And the question is, Joe, I'm a DVAA member, and I wish to observe M46 and M47
but I don't want to miss my show on the Hallmark Channel. What should I do? Sign AL. And you know, it's just amazing because I think about all the time myself. And so I just want to kind of give you an easy way, AL, to do this and not miss a trick on. So what you can do actually is go out in the cold, set up your scope on Sirius at the top of the hour, and wait exactly 53 minutes. Okay, and in 53 minutes, what's happening is the love interest in the Hallmark Channel has been told by their boss that they have to go back to New York and leave the little town that, you know, she fell in love with this guy in. So if you wait 53 minutes and move up one finer field, you'll be right in the middle of this. So you can really have your cake and eat it all. You see the end of Hallmark, and you'll be able to observe these two fine clusters. So it's priceless, you know. So these clusters are actually, we're looking, as Jeremy had mentioned, we're looking outside of the galaxy. You know, in the summer, we're looking towards the center of the galaxy. Here, you know, from our home on the Orion Spur, we're actually looking outwards towards the outside of the galaxy. And we're looking towards the next spiral arm out, which has several names. Some people call it the Orion arm. It's also variously known as the Perseus arm. But yeah, these clusters are all kind of on the way out. We're looking out of the galaxy in these winter hours. This is a galaxy that's also very, very bright and a great object to look. And I guess it's kind of borderline between autumn and winter. This is NGC 891, discovered by William Herschel, and it's 30 million light years away. But it's a very, very bright object. It's a very big object. It's 13 arc minutes long, and it's really a great object. And I had a great view of this. I don't know that much about electronically assisted astronomy, but I tried it on this object about a year ago from my Bortle 7 sky, and it is just amazing. And I think in the future, you know, based on what I saw, you know, we had two happy camps in astronomy. You know, we have the imagers and we have visual observers. I think in the next years, these lines are going to blur, and we're going to be in an area where, you know, the images aren't doing really imaging, and the visual observers are kind of doing more like the imagers. And we're going to wind up with this EAA in a happy middle. And I think a lot of eyepieces are going to be collecting dust. So that's just my personal opinion, but I think we're heading towards kind of a revolution. And I think the technology is there, and I think it's going to be out there in a couple of years. So stay tuned for that. Just an enlargement. This is about a 2-hour exposure. And this shot was shot from Frank Colosimo's, the only one that kind of left it my backyard for. And my thanks and hat off to him for his extended generosity to all of us to be able to observe and image from up there in his beautiful sky and beautiful surroundings. So, oh yeah, the other one is I was going to kind of move to that later. That's actually looks like that's actually 898. And this is actually an edge-on galaxy as well, and it's about 2 arc minutes long, and it's a 13th magnitude galaxy. This is like 10th magnitude. That's like 13th magnitude. And there's a lot of other little things going on in here. I just want to this area right here. These are like little tiny galaxies in a cluster that's really unnamed. But if you look at them, this is just a little thing from Uranometria. And this is that star. And all these little guys here are little galaxies that showed up in the same field. And they're about 14th magnitude on average. And I only looked up a few of them, but they're about 250 million light years away. And we're shooting this with like 620 millimeter focal length. So it's really a modest focal length scope, you know. And I think it's kind of a tribute to just where the technology is, I mean, I grew up with film and hyperfilm and cold emulsions and things like that, and you just beat your brains out. And these new cameras are just, they're just so wonderful. They're so noise free, and the quantum efficiency is just so high. Like any, it's just amazing. And these are all off the shelf components, So it's just amazing what can be done these days, even from light polluted areas. Just a little bit of enlargement there. And then finally, one other little thing, an easy jumping off point. There's a beautiful double in Andromeda called Gamma Andromeda. It's one of the most beautiful doubles in the sky. It's actually a quadruple star, and it's just multiple colors and just great. You can actually, if you wanted to find this 891, you can actually go up there and just wait 19 minutes, and it will precisely center you on 891 from Gamma Andromeda. So there's another hallmark show that you can see in the meantime. And these are just two galaxies. These are actually, I guess, borderline winter and spring galaxies, like 10 hours, right? Essentially, like that, or 10 hours hour angle. So we're kind of getting towards the spring now. But at the end of the winter, late at night, these are actually very high in the sky. These are just one is a grand design spiral galaxy, this Bode's galaxy M81, and the other is a starburst system. And they think that starburst system is caused by an interaction with M81. That's M82. And some people, when they photograph it, they can do a lot better job. But I found with this hydrogen emission that's going on over here. So, but I was able to photograph that in my backyard. And right here, there's just a little tiny satellite galaxy there called Holmberg 1, I think. And this Holmberg 1, from a darker sky site, you can probably see it a little bit better, but that's a shot of that taken with the Hubble. Holmberg was a Swedish astronomer, and I think he was one of the pioneers in studying interacting galaxies. And he did the first galactic interaction in the 40s with light bulbs and things like that. So kind of an interesting guy. And it'd be interesting to know a little bit more about him. But, And there's an easy way to look at this too. Two finer stars that you can use for this are the Alpha Dipper star, and this one called FAD. And these two stars are exactly 10 degrees apart. So you can actually shoot a virtual ray from there, go another 10 degrees, and you'll actually be right on them. So if you have a pair of binoculars and you happen to be in a dark sky, you can use that as an easy way to find M81 and M82. And there are just some details. But thank you very much for listening. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Joe. I think that's our presentation for the evening. So if anyone has any questions, we can take them. Otherwise, we will see you Sunday for the board meeting or in the new year.
Yeah, and you're
Turn it over to the president. Any questions of the if not, have a happy holiday, and we will see you back here first Friday in January, right?
Yes.
First Friday.